Welcome, everybody. My name is Mina Jane, and I am the director of the Ashland Public Library in Massachusetts. I say Massachusetts because Jody, who is our wonderful reviewer, is from a different state. So I welcome you all here. Let us know where you're coming from in the chat. And a couple things before we get started. We only have half an hour, so I'm going to be really quick. I would like to thank the Friends of the Ashland Public Library for supporting all of our programs, and I would like to thank Jody for letting us share this program with other libraries, because when libraries work together, we can make magic. So I will put a list of our partnering libraries in the chat. And so today we're talking with Jody, aka Red Read Reviews, about recommendations that she's making for us to read that she has loved. If you follow her on Instagram, you know she knows what she's talking about. We're probably going to focus mostly on horror and thrillers, but I asked you to put your recommendations in the chat. And after the program, I will send you a list of everything Jody recommends as well as everything you recommend. So it's totally interactive, but we are in webinar. So if you have a question, put it in the Q&A and I'll read it to Jody. If you have something to say that you want Jody to hear, I'll be paying attention to the chat as well. So Jody, what do we got on tap?
Hi, I'm Jody. Hi, it's me. I'm from Connecticut. So I like horror. I like thrillers. I don't do any of the romancy stuff. So if you're here for Love Fest, that's not going to happen.
Wait, I might have romance recommendations though, so don't give up.
What kind of romance recommendations though? Like, is it smut or is it like bodice rippers?
Total smut.
See, smut is so hot right now. I actually just finished last night. What is it? The Butcher and the Blackbird. Are you familiar with that one yet?
No.
Oh my God, it's hot right now. Everybody's reading it on Instagram. I'm like, well, the publisher's like, can you read this for me? They send me a copy, and I read it. It's like these serial killers fall in love. So there's some like gore and there's stuff in there for me. But then there's like 12 pages of smut, like straight on smut. And I'm like, I can see why this book is getting so popular. I guess I liked it. So maybe I sort of like romance, or maybe I just like smut horror.
Well, maybe that's a new genre.
But it might be, honestly, that horror is having a moment. They are definitely, there's so many subgenres now out there. It's come so far from when, I started reading horror when I was 11 years old, and it was Stephen King. That was like it. Dean Koontz, who I love. I love both of them. But now it's like we have, there's like brand new horror writers coming out, like dozens of them a year. And then their YA horror is no longer R.L. Stine. It's like there's so many out there.
Yeah.
McKin.
Okay.
It's come such a long way.
I do know we're focusing today on your top 10 recommendations from 2023.
So I did sort of minimize this. So what I have a list of my top 4 horror, and then I have some thriller recommendations that I did not put on my Insta, that I really want to focus on too, just to change it up. And I'm Italian, FYI. I talk with my hands. If you were here in person, I probably would smack you. I apologize for the virtual assault. Okay, so we'll start off. My number 1 pick for 2023 was, I don't know if you all can see this, Black River Orchard by Chuck Wendig. This book is hella thick. It's super thick. It was intimidating. I almost didn't read it, but I was like, he's a solid writer, so I dived into it. Oh my God, it's amazing. It's like, I'm a big fan of cults, and it's like it's an apple cult, right? How weird is that? It's an apple cult.
Okay.
Yeah, it's bizarre. It's not super gory. It's not like, bloodbath gory, but it's definitely intense. The characters you fall in love with, there's characters in here you hate. It's small town life. Oh God, it's just so freaking good. He did a number with this, and he did his research too. He mentions a lot of heirloom apples that you don't know about. I didn't know about. This is a whole thing. And I guess at his signings, he was doing apple tastings. Like, that's intense. So anyways, this was my if I have to pick one, this is my pick for 2023.
Okay, so I'm gonna stop you and ask, can you give us like a 2-sentence overview about what the book is about?
2 sentence. This farmer finds this like magical apple seed grows apple orchards, and the town becomes addicted to the apples. It's got like this addictive, like you need to have them kind of thing, and it makes you feel special and stronger. And so yeah, it's like crack. They're crack apples, not crab apples. They're crack apples. So everybody wants them, and they become addicted, and it just becomes like this really strange cult. It's the only way to describe it. It's a cult. I don't know that it's actually a cult, but it's a cult.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, it was so good.
Okay.
Does that
Excellent.
explain it? Probably not.
That's
I'm
fine
selling it
though,
as cult.
because it gives us a good sense of what it's about and how dark and dreary it might be.
Yeah, yeah. And it's also, like I said, it's educational, which was like, I'm reading it and I'm like, is that really a thing? So then you go down the Google rabbit hole and then you want to try those apples, but some of the apples don't sound so tasty. I don't know. That was brilliant. Who would thought of doing horror in apples? But you know, there's a lot of things that involve apples that are pretty scary. So then my second, I don't like doing number 1, 2s, and 3s. I tried not to do that with my best stuff because I did like everybody equally, but these are like my standouts. Whale Fall by Daniel Kraus. Have you read this?
No, but
my
the
God.
cover's gorgeous.
Oh, it is. It's so pretty. And they actually had there was a brewery in Maine that came out with a line of beer without
Oh,
isn't that like awesome?
that
I actually a friend gave me this. My husband drank the beer so I could keep the can. Because I'm lame like that. So anyways, Whale Fall, it's a horror book, but it's not a horror book. So I feel like even you could read this and not be like, oh my God, what am I reading? What does she recommend to me? So this one, 2 sentences. I don't know if I can do that in 2 sentences. This guy's father dies bottom of the ocean. He goes looking for the body at the bottom of the ocean. Scubas, their family of scuba divers. And while he's down there, he gets swallowed by a whale. Right? The whale doesn't chomp on him. There's no like gnawing. It's not a shark attack. The whale just pretty much accidentally swallows him. Believe it's a sperm whale. So imagine how giant this whale is, right? And this guy is swimming around in the whale's stomach, and he's going through these digestive areas, and in the meantime, throughout the whole book, it's a countdown to how much air he has in his tank. It is so nerve-wracking, and I read this all in one sitting because I'm like, he's gonna die, he's gonna run out of air, or he's just gonna. There's some nasty things in that stomach. So the whole book is inside the stomach of a whale. Like, who does that? Who writes a book about the stomach of a whale? So damn well written. And and he's going through all of this stuff he never got to say to his father. So it's definitely it's a book about grief and regrets, and that's really what the book is. But it's in the whale stomach that had me. And he did his research. Like these, I don't know, these authors take forever to write these books because they're like seriously researching. He researched the whole anatomy. I talked to him. This is his baby. And I recommend this like to everybody, even if there's not like that big horror in it. Okay. Can't be wimpy with that one.
So I just want to remind people that you can put questions in the chat, in the Q&A if you want. We're happy to answer them, and Jody is too, or comments in the chat. So I do want to know, Jody, how did you find those 2 books? Like what made you pick them up?
Well, I mean, Instagram definitely influences you. I have so many friends on Instagram, and there's, a couple that pretty much have the same level of horror love as I do. And I follow them. And if they're like, oh, I love this book, I'm like, okay, well, I'll definitely pick that. There's another horror Instagrammer that I follow, Sadie Hartman. She's Mother Horror. Pretty much if she recommends it, I'm going to buy it. Because she's like, she knows everything when it comes to horror. But I have read Daniel Kraus before, so I was familiar with him. I figured I just like the idea of him being stuck in a whale, and like, wow. And then Black River Orchard. I don't really know why I picked that one up, because a lot of people haven't read it because of how intimidating it is. And I seriously, I bought it, and then I'm like, am I really going to read this? Is it going to be just like a coaster? But then I'm like, I started it, and it blew my mind. And I hear the audiobook's amazing. I think it's 17 hours, but my friend said she flew through it in 4 days. because
Okay.
you can't stop listening.
All right,
Um,
you heard it here. You can't stop listening.
yeah,
So what's,
that's a good audio.
yeah, so what's next?
So next I have Boys in the Valley by Philip Fracassi. I'm probably saying his last name wrong. He's a super cool dude. Multi-talented guy. He's screenwriter. He's amazing. He writes some really dark horror. This is demonic possession. It's not like Exorcist. Well, it kind of is because there's priests involved. So it takes place in an orphanage that is run by priests. And they take in someone in the middle of the night who supposedly possessed. And I have to tell you, it's like, I think, third chapter in, there is like this paragraph that has got to be the scariest thing I've ever read. It literally gave me chills when he describes how the demon laughs, and you can almost hear that evil cackle. I didn't do it on audio. It would be great on audio, I bet. If they do like a cackle in the back, would be even better. And then there's a point in the book where he describes the silence of the room, and you feel the tension of these kids because it spreads like a disease, this whole possession thing.
Mhm.
And the kids in the orphanage start going at each other. And then it does get pretty bloody. This one is pretty bloody. So, go in prepared for some bloodbath on this one. And it's hella violent too. These kids are going at each other. It's horrible. They're comparing it to Lord of the Flies, but I think it's worse. It's just, it's scary. It's good. It's so well written. It's in a snowstorm. Oh,
So
God.
what is the, so I'm guessing a lot of people here already read horror. What is the I guess the appeal of reading something that, as you said, horrible, but
It
yet
makes you
still
feel.
Oh,
It makes you feel. You're feeling, well, if you read romance to feel, happy, or the sad, or if you need an ugly cry, which sometimes we need one of those. I read horror to have the fear, and I don't know, you feel it deeper. I feel like when you're scared of something and then they throw these emotions in, like, who's it? Clay, was it Chapman Cloud? I always screw that up. He makes you feel. His last book, What Kind of Mother, had me crying. It's a effing horror book, and there's like a chapter in there where I was bawling my eyes out. I sent him a message. I'm like, "What are you doing to me? I'm crying. I'm not supposed to cry." And he's like, "I promise it gets better." I'm like, it's great, it's excellent, but like I'm feeling all of these feels that you don't feel with horror, and it's just so good when they make you feel like, when you get like all the feels. I don't need love. Don't put any. Well, sometimes I like love. If there's murder, maybe I like some love. I don't need blood though. For me, it's not just about the bloodshed. It's how they got to the bloodshed, and then what they're feeling when it's happening, or it's the hunt, it's the fear. Does that answer your question?
yeah.
I hope.
That it gives you, well, I think we've heard this before because Jody also is like me, an author follower, that it gives you a safe place to feel those things. It's in fiction. So it gives you that safe area, safe place.
Right. Right.
So yeah, let's keep moving though, because we could talk about this all night because I'm fascinated by this topic.
Okay. Well, I got more. So I like cults. I kind of feel like I could, like, run one. I feel like I would get sucked into one at some point. Cults they fascinate me. There's a book called Cultish. I can't remember who it's by, that dives into all the worlds of cults. Worth the read. But I've definitely had that mindset where I can get sucked in or lead a cult. I think I'd be a really good cult leader though. Everybody would have to have blue hair. So I'm going with Rachel Harrison's Black Sheep. Did you read this? You didn't read anything. I know you haven't read a damn book that I recommended.
No.
Man, we gotta work on you. So this one, Rachel Harrison, first of all, I absolutely adore her. She is this gorgeous, tiny little woman who writes such dark stuff. Like, I don't know where she gets this, like, in her mind. She's insane. She writes what they call pink horror. That's another genre now. Apparently, I learned about this at an event a few months ago. I call it chick horror. I'm gonna like, trademark that. Chick horror.
Okay.
So she writes chick horror because it's usually from a female's perspective. It usually has to do with sisterhood or friends and family, and it's very it's definitely more emotional, more girlish, I guess. I mean, her characters are dainty, but they're badasses. So, anyways, in this book, there's a cult. I'm not going to tell you what kind of cult because that's the whole book. Because when she reveals what kind of cult it is, you are shocked. You go into it thinking it's one thing, and I think 3 chapters in, you realize it's not. There's a lot of old school horror movie references in here, which is very cool. She knows her stuff. There's some Satanism in there. It's just, this is good. It's not really that bloody. I'd give it like I should probably do a blood scale. I think it's like a level 3 blood. Yeah, out of 5. No, maybe level 2. Worth the read. Check stuff. She wrote Cackle, which is a witch book, because I do read. Okay, all right, I got you. I do read witchy stuff. So some historical fiction with witches in it, I'll read that.
Okay.
But that's as far as it goes.
Well, that's okay. You're allowed to read what you enjoy. Kamachi just says she's not reading horror. Right now she's reading Yellowface by R.F. Kuang.
I heard that's really good. That is definitely making like the rounds on Instagram. So I would read that. I do read a lot of own voices and queer literature, and I do try to incorporate that stuff in, because I like to be open-minded and well-rounded. But my love is with murder. Like, I'm gonna need somebody to die. I'm gonna need someone to die.
Okay.
All right. So now I'm gonna jump into thrillers. So, TJ Newman, Drowning. Oh, you're reading this one. Read this one. At least if you don't read any of the ones that I tell you to, read this one. This is a thriller. It's not horror. It doesn't get bloody. This is another underwater thing. The oceans are claustrophobic, right? Yeah, I hear. Yeah, see, Yellowface was very good. Yeah, I can actually see the little pop-ups of when people are posting stuff.
Okay, good.
Which is, so a plane crash. The plane's crashing like in the first chapter. No surprise there. The plane going down is pretty graphic, and you're already getting your adrenaline going with the plane starting to crash. But then when it crashes, it hits the fan. Anything that could go wrong goes wrong. Worst case scenario, it's in this book. And there's a family on the plane that are trying to survive. So that's where she gets you. She puts a kid in the book. I've got kids. I want my kids to survive. She got you with that. But the writer was actually a flight attendant.
Ooh,
yeah. So she knows her stuff. Yeah. And I guess she asked a lot of her pilot friends, if this happened, what would you do, or what could happen? And they were always trying, well, that wouldn't happen. And she said, no, I need it to happen because this is what's going to happen in the book. So you need to tell me what would happen if this happened. Think worst case scenario. And it's in the book. Everything bad that can happen is in this book. It's really good. I believe it takes place in Hawaii. So there's a lot of stuff going on under the water in Hawaii, which I'm not going to tell you because I don't want to ruin it, but it happens in this book. A lot of people die. It's a plane crash. I'm not gonna tell you what happens, but it's her follow-up book to Falling, which is another plane. I don't know how many plane books she has in her, but this one was just as good. This one's from I think this might be 2021 when this came out. Mm-hmm. But Drowning was even better than Falling. So I recommend that one if you want White Knuckled.
Okay. Well, Mary says the same thing, that Falling and Drowning are both great books.
Yeah, it rose my heart. I got stressed out reading it. Mm-hmm. So that's when you know I'm like sweating and I can't parent and I tell everybody to go away. I need to finish this book. That's when you know it's a good book.
Hey, Jody, Kamachi says she wants to read Christmas Presents by Lisa Unger.
I read that.
Yep, and she wants to know what you thought of it.
I thought it was very good. So, you know how Die Hard is a Christmas movie? I don't think it is. But I got a lot of crap about this on Instagram. Everybody else thinks Die Hard is a Christmas movie. Christmas Presents is a Christmas book in that sense. So it takes place during Christmas, but that's not the book. So you can actually read it now. Well, you can read it in the summertime. I'm a holiday reader. Like I'll read Christmassy stuff on and Halloween stuff on Halloween. So like I normally wouldn't pick up Christmas Presents in like August, but you could definitely read that one in August and not feel like you're cheating on the holiday. And it's a good, it's a very good thriller. Unger, she writes, she's like a great writer. It's a mystery. I really enjoyed it.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you, Kamachi. You should pick it up. All right.
It's okay to read Christmas thrillers and horror after Christmas.
Any Christmas book is fine anytime.
Just like watching Hallmark Christmas movies you can do all year. I bet you do.
I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
I could watch Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer any time of the year also.
Oh, I'm with you too. My God, I love that. So my next thriller, she's a Connecticut writer, Wendy Walker, and this is What Remains. Have you read Wendy? Have you read her stuff?
I have not, no. I am not as well read as you are. I mean, a terrible librarian, I think.
I can roughly read a book a day. So I kind of like, I inject them.
Mm-hmm.
Her first, not her first, but her big hit book was Emma in the Night. That's like, I want to say 5 years ago it was published. Phenomenal book. If you're going to start anywhere with Wendy Walker, start with Emma in the Night. It's twisty and dark. This book is a little bit different than her other books. It's just as dark and twisty, but it deals with, okay, so let me set this up. Woman's a cop. She goes into, I believe, Walmart. There's a gun thing that happens in Walmart. She's there. She's a part of it. And it's the after effects that situation has on her is really the whole book. She's a victim, so she's experiencing victim guilt, but she was doing her job.
Mm-hmm.
And there's guilt associated with that. And she was commended for it, and there's guilt associated with that. So it's very rough. It does become about obsession. I love obsession books. We'll do a whole thing on obsession. Oh my God, maybe in February to go with Valentine's Day. I love obsession. I'm obsessed with obsession. So there's some stalking, some obsession in there. And then she also tackles different forms of assault on women. So not just rape, it's the mental sexual assault.
Mm-hmm.
It's really, it bothered me. It made me uncomfortable, which is good. She just wrote it so well. Good ending. It's dark. It's twisty. You're really not expecting things to happen that do. I definitely recommend this one if you're into dark and twisty thrillers. I do like a lot of dark and twisty. I do like classic mysteries as well, so I'll probably throw some of those in there as well. But I'm not good for the darker stuff.
Okay.
So next I have, where are we at with time?
We have about 5 more minutes, so you probably have time for one more book.
Okay. This one. This was almost my number one pick. So when I read this, middle of the year, maybe towards the beginning of the year, I said, this is going to be my number one book for 2023. True crime. Well, we can do a whole month on true crime. The Quiet Tenant by, I'm going to say her last name and I'm going to mess it up. You ready? Clemence Michelon. She's French. She really is French. I met her. She's beautiful. She rocks the red lip like nobody's business. She's got this great accent. She's so nice. Again, these cute little ladies are writing this horrible stuff. I love it. It's a serial killer book. Serial killers have my heart. It doesn't focus on the killer, which is a really different take on a serial killer book. It's not about his crimes. It's not even about him. It's about the women that are in his life. So it's told from 3 narratives, the daughter, the love interest, and the captive. It blows your mind. Like, seriously, And then it also goes into what I took from it is how many different ways you can be a prisoner. You know, his daughter is essentially a prisoner because she can't leave him.
Mhm.
You know, his love interest, she's in love with him. You don't leave the person you're in love with. And then the woman that he's holding captive, it's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. And then it makes you question, like, what's worse, being alone in like a basement held captive in a cage? Like, is that the worst possible situation, or being held in the next room upstairs in his house where his daughter is downstairs watching TV? Like, what's a worse situation? Like, you have the possibility where you could run, you could get out, but he's there watching you. Or you have the privacy when you're alone and he's most likely watching you. That's
Mhm.
scary. Like, doesn't that frighten you? Like, it's scary stuff.
Yeah, wow.
Oh, it's honestly terrifying. Read this one with the lights on. It was good. It was uncomfortable. It was good. The characters were amazing. The main narrative, who is the captive, they never say her name. It's told from, what is it, first person perspective, where it's I, and it so you feel what she's feeling. You're with her on that journey. Oh, they're really hard. And then the other narratives are not told from that perspective. Just brilliant writing, absolutely brilliant writing, and excellent story. And it's super twisty and just a different take on a serial killer book. I'm moving the books around a lot.
I do have to ask you, in the last couple of minutes, do you think that that's a book that had to be written by a woman to get all of those female perspectives?
Yes, 100 times yes, because she got all of everything that we worry about as women.
Mhm.
You know, you've got your family, you've got your found family, your love interest, and then, you know, the things that you're scared of. And what are you not scared of but the people outside of your house?
Mhm.
You can't trust anybody. Oh my God, don't even get me started on that. Oh my God. It's like I raised my daughter, taking her to the grocery store, and, pay attention to who's around you, who's following you, who's in the same aisles as you. We have to constantly be on alert.
Mhm.
Books are written like this as little educational things. Even so, it's not true crime. It kind of reads like true crime because it could happen.
Mhm.
So
Oh, I totally learned about how to avoid date rape drugs in a book. Like,
yeah,
never put your drink down,
yeah.
don't take a drink from a stranger,
Yep.
things like that.
There's a book, Megan Collins, another Connecticut writer who I absolutely adore. I stalk her, poor woman. She wrote a book called The Family Plot about a family that's obsessed with true crime. And they used they homeschool their kids, and they use true crime as their education. And they bring them up on it, what to watch out and look out for, and what not to do, or, what to do in this situation. And it's funny, I'm reading this book and I'm like, I think she wrote this about me. This is before I started really super stalking her. This is what got me in love with her. Because with my daughter, I definitely brought her up on Ted Bundy and all of the other, we listened to true crime podcasts together, and she's like, oh my God, that girl's such an idiot. What was she doing? I'm like, you're not going to make that mistake. You're smarter than that. So I like to think I'm doing a good job with my kids. Hopefully they're the killer and not the victim.
Well, I see you are probably raising them right then. All right, you have one more minute. What last book do you want to tell us about?
Indie horror, not huge published. I believe he self-publishes. Gage Greenwood. I just want to plug indie horror because they're not getting enough recommendations. He is from Rhode Island. I try to go local. I like to stay within the 3 states. He wrote a book called Bunker Dogs. Vampire-y sort of ass. I do love vampires. Vampires, witches are my thing too, and cults. Put them all together and I'd be really happy. But he wrote, it's like a vampire-y, underground, end of the world sort of situation. It's a really short novel. I think it may be considered a novella because it's so short. It just really good. Absolutely amazing. I wish that they would get more recognition than they do. It takes so much to get published. Gage Greenwood.
Gage Greenwood. Got it. Okay, so I will send out all these recommendations for everybody to read. I will be reading as well. And Jody's going to do this every month on the second Tuesday of the month at 7 p.m. So we hope to see you again next month. Bring your friends. And thank you, Jody. This is really, really fun.
Thank you for having me. Hopefully everybody
Absolutely.
comes back and I didn't scare anybody off.
Oh, I'm not scared. I'll be here. So, good night, everybody. Have a wonderful,
Bye. Thank
happy
you.
reading.